What's up, Van Fam? It's Ben Price back at you again today with another video, and today we've got a little build vlog going for you. We've got a Transit 148 here, and the customer is looking to have one of our subfloor kits installed. They wanted a couple modifications. We're doing a 3/4 inch subfloor, and it's already going to be pre-finished with hex ply. But before we do any installation today, we've got a couple modifications to that kit to make, and I wanted to film this today to share with you guys to show you that you can still modify our kits. They are designed for most people to be able to just put it together the way we intend, drop it in place, and then you're off on the road. But that doesn't mean that if you have something unique that you want to do to your van or that's pre-existing in your van like we've got here, these kits are all modifiable to fit your exact needs.
If you haven't already seen how to install our DIY floors, after this video is done, go down into the description and you'll find the link to that video. But in short, it's really simple, fast, and easy. Kits come in as few as 3 pieces. Each piece is pre-laminated with 1.5 inches of insulation and a 1/2 inch Baltic birch subfloor. It's all cut out on CNC with grooves on the bottom to match the grooves on your floor, so it's a perfect fit every single time.
Okay, so here we are having a look at the inside of the van. You can see right off the bat, we've got 2 captain's chairs installed here. Cameron's working on getting those out of our way for the moment. But the unique challenge that we've got is that there is a mounting base plate down here. That's not going anywhere. That's gonna stay, but it's bolted in place. So the seats can come in and out, but that base is gonna stay there. And typically our floor kit is just gonna go flat all the way across the floor. Designed for a cargo van, which doesn't have any of the plastic trim in here and doesn't have any seats. So first modification we're going to have to do is getting our floor kit cut around the base and working on doing some kind of nice cover for that base as well. Okay, so if I come over here on the side, you can see what I'm talking about here. This big old plate has got a bunch of bolts through bolted, so you've got bolts going through the top. There's nuts and plates on the bottom, but then that plate has some welded hardware underneath it, and that's what these seats are bolting into. So that whole plate is going to stay in place. These seats are going to come out. And then the other modifications we're going to have to make to our floor kit have to do with these plastic panels that are here on the side. Now, like I mentioned earlier, our floor kit is designed for the cargo vans. This is a crew van. The difference primarily comes with seats, windows, and plastics. Cargo vans are full sheet metal, no headliner, no plastics on the walls. Sometimes there's something on the floor, but usually not. And then no seats. So the cutout, the outline of our floor kit is designed for the cargo vans, which don't have the plastics. So that is what we're going to be cutting around. The big one is going to be the air conditioning unit, or should I say the rear air conditioning unit. That underneath that plastic is a separate air conditioning unit than the one that's up in the dash up there. And then that brings cold air up through the headliner and then out of all of those vents there on the side. We're leaving all of that in place. We're not going to touch any of that. So we're just going to trim our floor kit to go around this guy. We're also going to need to trim to go around our wheel well covers, and then the C-pillar covers down here on the bottom. Not too much trimming, really not going to be that difficult. So let's get into it. All right, so Cameron has been working with his tape measure and some blue painter's tape, just getting a visual marked out for how we're gonna trim this. Just to give you an idea of what we're working with. This area here in between the tape, that is where our mounting plate is gonna sit. So if we kind of step into the van here, you can see the mounting plate does not go all the way to the wall over there. So that's kind of what we're mimicking here, right? This is going to be the section that goes around that plate, and then we'll just cut this relief out. So then this whole piece right here, we'll be able to take the seats out, put glue down on the floor, grab this piece, bring it in, drop it in around that base. And then we're gonna make a new section. We're not gonna reuse this because we're gonna have to cut this out, which means it's gonna leave a gap from the cutting tool that we use, and we want this to look really nice. So we're gonna cut another piece that's gonna fit nice and tight between that gap, and that's gonna sit over our seat base over here. And then we'll have some mounting points to affix that to the seat as well. All right, and while Cameron is working in the van, we've got Maureen in here on our CAD computer, and she's getting the measurements that Cameron just took out in the shop translated here into Fusion so that we can get our CAD models of everything that we're going to be cutting and modifying, get that all dialed in on the computer so that we can then bring everything back out into the shop, put it onto our CNC router table, and then we'll use the machine to do all of our cuts, make sure it comes out really nice. Okay, so while Cam and Maureen are working on the computer files, I'm gonna work on doing some manual templating. Sometimes that's easier. And for a lot of you guys who don't have CAD software, don't have CNC machines, you're not gonna be able to do that. So I'm gonna show you a manual way where you can get new shapes and then cut, modify these subfloors to fit for you. So I'm gonna start right back here around our D pillar trim and then this rear piece of trim. Not every transit is going to come with this. Some of them do come without it. So our floor kit is trimmed and ready to go all the way out to the end. But today we're going to cut it back to this line here. Okay, so what are we going to do? Well, first I'm going to go get a piece of paper all taped up to fit in here, and then we will essentially just trace our new contours onto that piece of paper, and then we'll start cutting from there. So let's go get that set up. Okay, so I've got my rear panel here, and this is the corner that we're working on. The best thing to do when we've got these kind of more organic, curved, not quite so geometric shapes, we try to get reference measurements. So we know exactly where this is on the van. If we go back over here and have a look, if we look underneath this piece of trim right here, I don't know if it's going to show up on camera, but that right angle, that 90-degree corner is right in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our paper match that, and then that is going to give us a nice reference for where that shape is going to go. So I've got some printer paper here, I've got some masking tape, and I've got a pencil. So all we're gonna do here is we're just gonna line up this paper on the edge and mimic that corner. I'm gonna go ahead and get some tape on here to hold those two in place, and then we'll bring this over to the van and trace it all out. Okay, so I've got my piece of paper taped here. You can see I've taped seams front and back just to make sure that this stays nice and secure. And now I can go ahead and line this back up with that corner just to make sure, double check that everything's looking good. And I got this edge nice and flush, this edge flush, and this edge flush. So now I'm gonna grab this, I'm gonna grab a pencil, and we're gonna go over to the van. Okay, so I actually was just able to fold this corner, and what that's gonna allow me to do is to get that corner of the paper tucked up underneath our D pillar plastics and our rear trim right here. We'll get this squared up here against that edge, and now we know that the corner of our paper, again, is lined up similarly to the corner of the floor. And now what I can do is come in here with a pencil, and I'm just going to lightly trace that contour. And we come up to here, come to the edge of our step trim, And I'm gonna trace that line too. My paper just shifted on me, but I've got a nice straight line. So if we come out here, it's kind of faint right now, but you can see that I've got essentially the shape and lines that I need. I can darken that up, and then we'll go ahead and trim this and then put that on our subfloor and mark where we're gonna cut. Okay, now getting the shape for the wheel well and the air conditioning here. I'm not gonna be using printer paper for this because we gotta lay it all flat and our floor is all ribbed and everything, so printer paper is not gonna be the most accurate. I ended up finding a piece of scrap 1/8 inch MDF. The 1/8 inch is thin enough that we're gonna be able to slide it in underneath the plastics so that we can butt this up against the metal of the van, which is where our reference is gonna be. So to get started, I'm not gonna be able to get this edge all the way up underneath our wheel well cover here without doing a little bit of trimming here first, because our AC is going to be in the way. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to line up this far edge with the edge of the wheel well cover and with this rib right here. And that will help to ensure that we've got a nice square reference here. And I'm gonna go ahead and trace this out. Let me go get a pencil. Okay, so now that I've got a pencil, I can come in right over the top of it, and we'll go ahead and just follow our contour. Make some nice dark lines. And then now we can go ahead and, it's gonna be kind of hard to see here on camera, but we'll go ahead and we'll follow that line. And we'll get that trimmed up. That will make some space, and then we should be able to get this nice and tucked in there. I'll see you after I do some trimming. Okay, so you can see I've trimmed out what I just traced, and now I should be able to sneak this guy underneath our wheel well cover, yep, and put it underneath the air conditioning cover here. And what I'm gonna do is get that edge nice and flat up against the metal of the wheel well. Now with this edge nice and square underneath the wheel well cover, we've got that nice square edge up against the metal of the wheel well. Now I can come in with my pencil and start tracing. So for now, I'm just gonna get the edge of the wheel well cover. We'll get that line nice and marked in. What I'm gonna do is get the difference, the offset there, probably about a 1/2 inch. And then when I pull this out, I'm just gonna retrace that line, but a 1/2 inch closer in. And then that will get my floor to where I want it to be. But for now, we'll just start tracing in this guy, our air conditioning cover. All right. Okay, so we're back in the shop. We've got our traced contours. You can probably see it if I come in close. I've gone ahead and taken my scribe tool and got my offset here so you can see my original line from tracing that wheel well cover. And then I got my offset in here, and then I use my scribe tool and set that up so that the pencil here is following the edge, matching that offset, and that's how I got that. And then we just extended the air conditioning contour to match my custom offset. And now what we'll do is we'll take my jigsaw and we'll cut that shape out. And then that is going to serve as the template for our cutout here on our floor. I've marked this all out in blue tape so that I can put pencil lines here on the tape for where we're going to cut after, you know, I've made all my templates. And the blue tape just makes it easier for us to see. Okay, so now with this piece cut, it is going to be this outside contour that we are going to be cutting on, but we're going to use our inside contours to line everything up. So we know that this edge is going to be up against this line where we're cutting off the bottom section of our floor, the back of our floor, and then this edge is going to mate up right with this edge of our wheel well. So if we line those up, it's a little tricky to do one-handed while I'm holding the camera, but we'll get it done for you guys. Okay, so we've got this guy lined up, we've got this lined up, and we know that this line is just going to continue all the way to the edge and cut off, and we'll have to continue that on the next piece as well. But at least now we know what our offset's going to be. Okay, here we've got the piece of our floor that's going to go in front of the one that we were just working on. Again, we know that our offsets are good here, so we can just do the same thing. So we can take our scribe tool, put our pointy end up against the edge, put our pencil end on the tape, and then just go ahead and drag, again, making sure to keep our pencil perpendicular to that edge so we get a nice consistent offset all the way around. Okay, and after that one's done, we can move on to this guy over here. Same thing, we'll line our pointy end up on the outside edge, keep our pencil perpendicular to the edge that we're scribing, and get our nice trim line. Okay, last but not least, I almost forgot our piece of paper from the beginning. I went and put blue tape on the back of it just to give it a little bit more structure, and then took some scissors and cut out around my line, and then we can still use our same references to line everything up. And as it did before, it still lines up perfectly, and now we can even see, you know, I've got my nice trim line down here from where we're going to take off this whole back section of the floor. That even lines up nicely. And then all we have to do now is just trace this contour right here, and that's going to be for our D pillar plastics. And then we should be all marked out on our floor pieces that we're going to be doing our hand cutting on, and ready to trim. Okay, so we just got our first corner cut out. Came out pretty good using the jigsaw. You saw I got that straight cut, knocking off this piece of the floor right here with the circular saw. Used a nice straight edge reference to make sure that that stayed straight. We didn't get any wobbles. And then just as far as making sure that this stayed a nice clean cut, I just took my time and was very careful. Now you'll notice I got a couple saw blades out here. And I want to point out something really important that you guys may or may not know. Obviously, I'm cutting hex ply here. The top surface of this is a phenolic laminate, which essentially is a fancy way of saying it is pressed plastic. This stuff likes to chip a lot when we're cutting it off the edge. Whether it's hex ply or any other kind of laminate, they tend to chip. And if you've used a bunch of jigsaws, then you know, normally the teeth are actually pointed upwards so that when we're cutting, as the blade comes up, it's actually pulling the saw down. Otherwise, if the teeth on the jigsaw point down, anytime that that is moving up, it's going to push the saw up, and we don't want that. However, with teeth pointed upwards, when they're cutting through, they're now going to be pulling that laminate face up, and that can cause a lot of chipping. So if you look here, I've got some examples. You can see the teeth on this blade are pointed up. You can see the teeth on this one, they're not actually pointing down or up, they're actually just pointing straight perpendicular. And then on this guy, our teeth are pointing down. And we already said that with the teeth pointing down, anytime that this saw blade moves down, I think I said before up, I was wrong. Anytime that the saw blade moves down, that's now going to push the saw up. And that ends up with our saw hopping. But with those teeth pointed down, now when it goes to cut this laminate, it's pushing that laminate into the wood underneath it, which means that the laminate is supported, which means it's much less likely to chip. So I do have a reverse blade. That's what we call it when the teeth are pointed down. I've got a reverse blade on here so that when I'm cutting through this laminate, yes, it does kind of want to hop on me, but when I do these complex corners, which have curves in them, we're not going to get any chipping. So all I have to do to counteract that hopping is just make sure that I'm really, pushing down on the saw, keeping it nice and stable while I'm cutting. So when we peel off the tape, you can see if we come in here close, I know this camera doesn't focus super close, so I might have to zoom for you, but this edge is nice and sharp. We don't have any chips. As where on this long edge, I don't know if you guys can see it, it's very minor, but there is some chipping. It's not quite as sharp of an edge here on the laminate. That's more rough. Now, this is really good for a circular saw blade, which the circular saw blade actually, if you didn't know, that actually also pulls up on that leading edge. So that's why we got some chipping. But that being said, compared to other thicker laminates, this did not chip that bad. So what I think I'm going to do is on the wheel wells here where we've got really long straights, I'm going to use the circular saw and I'm going to set up another straight edge to make sure that I get good straight cuts. And then for the corners, the rounded inside corners, we'll switch back to the jigsaw so that we can get a nice rounded corner and keep that clean. Obviously, the circular saw with its, long blade sticking out the bottom. We flip that up. Yeah, that blade, this whole width, is inside the wood the whole time that it's cutting, so we can't really do curves and corners and whatnot. So again, we'll just use the circular saw to get the straights, and then we'll use the jigsaw to get our nice rounded corners. You can see we've got a decently clean cut in here, and I'm just coming back with some 80 grit sandpaper just to kind of clean up any little bit of roughness left over from either the jigsaw or the circular saw, just to make it a cleaner install for the client. Okay, that is one side of one panel modified. Now we're going to move on to the other side, and then we got one more panel. All right, here we are. It's the afternoon now. We've got all of our floor panels trimmed to fit. Took a little bit of work. We had a little bit more trimming than we had expected, but you know, that's how van building goes. To cut our relief here for the seat base, we had to cut reliefs for our plastic trim panels, for the wheel well covers, and for the air conditioning. But everything's trimmed. We're all dry fit. Nothing's glued in. Now we're gonna pull all of these out, clean the floor off, and get to gluing. We got all of the pieces out. They are stacked up here, ready for installation. Before we do that, the last thing is going to be to get some shop rags, paper towels, lint-free cloths, and some isopropyl alcohol. And then we are just going to clean up the floor, make sure there's no dust or oil, grease, anything like that, so that our adhesive on the ribs gets a nice good stick. All right, now that the floor is all cleaned, we're ready to start gluing. I've got my sausage pack caulking gun here with my 3M 760. We're gonna lay down a bunch of beads on the ribs here, and then we'll go ahead, grab our floor pieces and start setting them down. All right, everyone, that is the subfloor all cut up, modified, and installed. We did end up making one more piece off camera to fill in the dead space between the two seats so we don't just have that pan exposed or that plate. And we are working on finishing up the edges here with some aluminum trim. And we'll show you how to do that in another video. So that wraps it up for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, had some fun, maybe learned a couple things. If you want to pick up this floor kit or any of our other professional grade DIY kits, make sure to head to our website at www.vamonosvans.com. Make sure to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more of this, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.